Hi. In the last video we saw a lot of information mechanics that have to do a lot with villages. And we also mentioned this mob, which is the most complex in the game, the villager. And this time we will review some mechanics and characteristics about this mob. Mostly the ones that have to do with their daily cycle. Let's begin. As you may remember, there is more than one way to obtain villagers. The first one is finding the structures, the villages, of which we have 5 types. First one is the plains, the next one is the taiga, the desert, the savanna, and the cold biome. And we can even find villagers on these igloos, which is a pseudo village. Where if we go to the basement, we'll find this villager over here, and on this side a zombie villager, which we can cure. Which take us to a second way to obtain villagers, is by curing zombie villagers. And as you saw, the first way is finding them in this igloo over here. The second way is by normal hostile mob spawn, which appear at nighttime or on dark places. And actually 5% of the zombies generated by this way are zombie villagers. So we just have to capture one of these, take him home and cure them. And the third way is finding these structures over here, the abandoned villages. They're easy to identify because doors are missing, some blocks are missing, glass panes are brown, and some blocks have been replaced by cobwebs. And these villages will be inhabited by zombie villagers. It looks like the village has been attacked, and everyone turned into zombie villagers. I really recommend to come at nighttime so zombies don't burn at sun. Thing that I obviously did not do. And of course, depending on the biome of the village, the skin of the villagers is going to change. And as we saw in the previous video, we have the plains, the taiga, desert, savanna, snowy, and we also have these additional 2 skins of villagers from villages that don't naturally spawn on the world, which is the swamp villager and the jungle villager. These kind of villagers are going to appear when these villagers are born inside biome. Villagers are going to claim workstations if the said workstation is not previously claimed by another villager. The workstations are these ones: the blast furnace, the smoker, cartography table, brewing stand, composter, barrel, the fletching table, cauldron, lectern, stonecutter, loom, the smithing table, and the grindstone. So considering all these skins, for example professions, which all have their own characteristics, and the skin depending on the biome where that villager belongs, we have all these combinations for villager skins. And also let's include nitwits, which are villagers that don't claim professions, but is also able to take a different skin for each biome. Now, let's also remember from the previous video, there is a daily cycle which these villagers take, and perform different tasks depending on the stage of that daily cycle they're in. So, a day in Minecraft lasts 20 minutes in real life. And that's how they start their cycle. As you can see on this table, you may see the tasks that villagers perform depending on what point of the day they are. And this changes for employed villager, unemployed villagers, and baby villagers. The unemployed villager can be a nitwit, as you saw the previous skin, or just a normal villager that has not yet claimed a working station. And it also depends if the villager is a baby or not, like this you see here. So to explain this daily cycle, we'll do an X. For example, let's start the day at midnight, and since it's nighttime, they're all searching their beds. Independently of the type of villager they are, everyone is at bed. If it's an employed villager, a nitwit, or a baby villager, they will all be sleeping on their beds. And first, at 6 AM, everyone gets up. At this stage, everyone is wandering around. They start to explore around the village, but they won't get very far away from the center of the village, their bed, or their workstations. One of the activities they will be performing is socializing. In this stage, they just stare one another, and if we get near enough, they will stare at us. If we see that table, we will see that another stage starts at 8 AM. This stage is where all the villagers go to their workstations and start to work. At this stage, nitwits and unemployed villagers just continue to wander around. And of course, baby villagers will also do the same. At 9 AM or tick 6000, you will see a small change. Baby villagers, instead of just wandering around, they will start to gather in groups and start to play. But we will see more of this further on. At midday or tick 6000, baby villagers stop playing and start to wander around again. Playtime stops at this point. At mid-afternoon, tick 9000 or 3 PM is what we denominate gossip time. Only adult villagers come to this point. Be they employed, unemployed, or nitwits. They come to the center of the village, typically determined by the bell. In case there is another bell in this village, it can also be a gathering point, and can be also claimed by villagers. Of course, only if there is a new villager that has also claimed this as a center of the village. As the adults continue gossiping, we will get to 4 PM or tick 10,000. At this point, baby villagers stop wandering around and start to play again. At tick 11,000 or 5 PM, gossip time ends, and they just start to wander around again and spread around the village. But this only lasts for a small period. Because at tick 12,000 or 6 PM, it is bedtime. You will see that the sun is just before sunset, and they all start searching their own beds. This includes, of course, employed villagers, nitwits, unemployed villagers, and of course, baby villagers. As everyone goes to sleep, we are going to review again the table. And if you can see here, we can divide all the tasks on 6 main areas. One is wandering around, where they can perform actually various tasks. There is also working, where they interact with their workstations and perform some tasks that can be very useful for us. At gossip time, they share a lot of information. Now it is bedtime or sleeping time, where they are going to search each for their own claim bed. And yes, they actually sleep from 6 PM to 6 AM, which is half of the entire day. And baby villagers play on 2 points, from 9 AM to midday, and from 4 PM to 6 PM is the second period, which ends just before bedtime. And the final class, where we are going to categorize the tasks, are those that do not depend on what stage of the day they are, and can be performed on any point of the day. So now we're going to see the first stage, wandering around. Right now you can see it is just after dawn. Right now everyone is wandering around, and the first task that they are programmed to do is explore. While exploring, for example this guy over here, they will not go very far away from their bed. But on the wandering phase there are only 2 occasions where they will go far away. For one, only if something calls their attention. For example, this one is socializing with a baby villager. He could have seen the baby villager far away and would have gone to it. Socializing, which is this action where they stare one another. And another occasion is when they find points of interest, which are not a lot, basically it's the workstation and beds. The only common point of interest between all the villagers is the center of the village, or the bell. So if the bed is far away, for example there, they will go all the way over there and come back to the bell. So in summary, they will only go around the limits of the village. If we press F3 and G, we will see the chunk limitations. Here you will see the bell in this chunk, and the limits of the village are limited by where they find the points of interest. Just remember that in these houses there are beds, and the village continues over here. There is nothing on this chunk. But since it is adjacent to a chunk where there is a bed, this also counts as part of the village. Now if we come to this chunk, we will see that if there are points of interest on the adjacent chunks, for example in this one there is a bell, it acts as a second center of the village. Now considering this, the game will search if in the adjacent chunks there are more points of interest. This chunk still counts as part of the village because it is adjacent, but if we come to this one outside, we are already outside of the village, because here in the adjacent chunks there are no points of interest. We will see that villagers are only going to wander on these limits. And the other task they perform is socializing, which is this event where they stare one another for 4 or 5 seconds. It happens a lot with baby villagers, but of course they do it also with adults. It doesn't only happen with villagers, it also happens with us, where if we get close enough they will stare at us. Also, there is a small number of activities that are not going to allow them to perform these tasks. For example, if they are harvesting, they are going to ignore us in that instant when they are headed to interact with their workstation, and of course they're going to avoid us when they are trying to get to their bed or fleeing from danger. More of that later. During exploration, if they go far away, here for example we're still in the village because in those houses there are beds, but in this chunk over here we are already outside. Now let's suppose that villagers comes over here. Since they are outside, sometimes they will come far away, they are going to try to get back to the village. But at what distance? Well, the distance at which they can detect a village is 32 blocks, or 2 chunks. If the villager is over here, for example in this chunk, he will still be able to detect that village. But if he comes over this border, at this distance it will not be able to detect the village. When they get over the border, the villager will forget the village in 6 seconds. For example, you see this villager over here, he is outside. He starts to explore, starts to search for the village. Now if he comes even closer, he will detect it. As you can see here, he saw the village, and now he is becoming part of it. Now the next part is exclusive to the baby villagers. Playing. So let's get to one of these parts. Remember that playing is done from tick 3000, 9 AM until midday, and the second stage is from 4 PM to 6 PM, just before bedtime. Now let's get to the first phase, tick 3000. We'll see that baby villagers start to gather together. Depending on how many baby villagers there are there, they're going to form groups from 2 to 7 members. The main game they're going to play is tag. Here we're going to see another group of 2 baby villagers, and actually they can join the bigger group over there. And the second activity they perform is jumping on the bed. The next part, which is exclusive to the villagers that have a job, is working, which is performed between 8 AM and 3 PM, which is approximately 7 hours a day. Let's set tick 2000, 8 AM. At this point they're going to head to the workstation they specifically claimed. For example, farmers are going to head to the composters, the fisherman to the barrel, and the armorer to the blast furnace. When a village is growing, we're going to see these adults who have not claimed a workstation. Now let's take this barrel, place it here. One of the unemployed villagers is going to see it, approach, and make a provisional claim. This provisional claim is going to last 60 seconds. During the 60 seconds, the villager is going to try to head to the workstation. If he does not make it, and the 60 seconds end, the provisional claim is going to end. But a few seconds later, he will be able to make another one. But if he is able to approach the workstation within 2 blocks of distance, he will be able to make a permanent claim. Of course, if the workstation is lost, he will also lose his profession. But he will be able to take it again. Within working time, these villagers will not head too far away from his workstation. And 2 times a day they will work. What this means is basically that they interact with their workstation, as you hear the barrel in this case. What basically is happening here is that they restock their trades. In case you have depleted them, they will be filled up again. For example, in the case you traded too much, a single item. With that action they will be able to restock it, and they perform this task 2 times a day. Trading in commerce is a complex theme, and I will dedicate a single video for that subject in particular. That pretty much summarizes what working is. Related to work, there is a particular task that farmers perform during this phase, and that is harvesting and planting. What this profession does is basically feed the other villagers. Farmers will wander around their workstation. That is why there is a good idea to put these composters very close to crops, and it is only in farmland where they will be able to plant crops. They don't get far away from their workstation. And what is going to happen is that in 4 blocks of distance, in X and Z axis, they will detect a crop block. and 2 blocks in the vertical axis, being 2 blocks up or 2 blocks down. So the following thing they do is that when they detect a farmland, they're going to try to determine what is the block just over that farmland. If it is air, they might decide to plant crops over there. Of course, this depends if in their inventory they have something to plant. A second option is if there is a crop that is not fully grown. But if the crop is fully grown, as you can see here, he breaks it, picks up the items, and now the villager detects air over the farmland and might decide to plant. Another task they perform is compost. Just like us, they can pick up some crops and put it into a composter, like this. Once it is full, they are also able to pick up the bone meal the composter produces and just take a look on compost. Now they can pick up this item, the bone meal, have it, and then decide to apply it to a crop in order for it to grow faster. Now the villager in a single turn can take 20 items and compost it here. And another condition is that they are going to keep in their inventory at least 20 items. So if the villager has less than 20 items, he will not compost anything. Now if they have bone meal, they're going to take the item, decide to apply it to a crop that is not fully grown, and they have a limit to do this only 20 times. After that, the villager stops. And the items the villager is able to compost is the potato, the carrot, beetroot seeds, and wheat seeds. Now and after that, if the farmer has some food items in his inventory, we're going to talk later what are the mechanics that determine how they share food with other villagers. If we see the table again, we're going to see that the next phase of task they perform is around tick 9000 or 3 PM, which is gossip time or a reunion in the center of the village. So we're going to start the phase in this moment. Working time stops. And at this point, any adult villagers, either if they have a job or not, is going to gather at the center of the village. In this case, they're going to recognize the bell as the center of the village. At this point, they're going to share information about what they know about the players. Of course, this information is different for every player that is playing on the server, an individual reputation for each player. The villager is a mob that is able to remember specific information of each player. This is plenty of information which is data, depending on which actions I have taken having to do with villagers. So they are sharing information over here, depending if they know something of the player. If we come over here, we're going to see another 3 villagers that have recognized this bell as the center of the village, a second center. And in this case, only these 3 are going to share information between them, and the other big group over there is going to share information within them. So, as you can see on the next table, we're going to see various actions we can take having to do with the villagers. In the first line, we're going to see the maximum positive, then the minimum positive. The third line shows small increments we can do to improve our reputation, mostly trading. These have a very low value, but we can do it repeatedly to increase our reputation. The minimum negative is attacking them, but the worst thing you can do to lower your reputation is killing a villager. So here is displayed various values you can use to improve or worsen your reputation. So as you can see in the next columns, curing a villager can give us a value of 20 on the maximum positive, but it will also give us a 25 increase on the minimum positive. Trading gives us a value of 2, which is very small. Attacking a villager is a value of 25, and killing a villager is a value of 25. Then on the next column we're going to see there is a decrease on these values each 20 minutes. So here you're going to see, within time, our reputation, being it very good or very bad, is going to start to normalize in time. There is a penalty while sharing information. For example, if you take a very good action with a villager, and this villager shares information in gossip with another villager, the second villager is not going to have as a strong opinion as the first villager you interacted with. And if that second villager talks with a third one, let's say the strength of that opinion decreases with each passing. And then each of these actions has a maximum value, and also in the last column you can see a multiplier. Now let's make an example. Let's say we cured one of these villagers which was previously a zombie villager. And let's say that by accident we hit another 2 villagers. So how does this reputation work? The first calculation is going to be 5 by 20, the multiplayer against the game quantity, plus 25 points for curing that villager, and since we attack 2 villagers, we have to subtract 25 and 25. And the final result is 75 of reputation. So now let's say 25 minutes pass, and each of these quantities has a penalty. In the first case, there is no penalty, and that is not going to change. For example, if the villager has a very strong opinion about us. Now, each time that villager shares that information, there is a penalty. So curing that villager is not going to help us a lot. Let's say with a second villager, the first villager shared information with. So 20 minutes pass, there is no decay in the first term, but there is a decay on the minimum positive of curing. So this 25 turns into 24, and there is a 20-point decay for attacking. So in 20 minutes they are going to forget we were so aggressive. Subtracting these quantities, the final result is 114. So let's say that the bad actions we take into this village are going to start to forget, and our reputation is slowly getting better. And in this case, when our reputation gets to minus 100 or lower, well, these dudes are going to attack us. And of course this only applies to golems that were created by the villagers. And the golems we created our own are not going to attack us. Another benefit of the reputation is that when we are trading with the villagers, prices are going to start to get better. Now the next stage I want to talk about is about sleeping. They sleep from 6 PM to 6 AM, and we get to that point where it's going to start to get dark. They cease any activity they were doing, and each of them is going to head to their own bed they have previously claimed. So that is an individual place for each villager. Within this stage, they sleep. But of course, sleep gets interrupted if we take any of these actions. Food lands nearby, if they get pushed off the bed, breaking the bed, right-clicking the bed, receiving damage, and sounding the bell. Here you can see everyone around heard the bell. Now let's talk about a few tasks that has nothing to do with these stages. They are individual and may be performed on many points of the day. So the first task is probably related to the farmers, where they start to share food considering they have enough to share. So the formula is the following. Within the items they can share, there are foods, which are the bread crafted from wheat, beetroot, potato, carrot. So let's suppose villager A, which is typically a farmer, has more than 24 items. Farmer A is going to search a farmer B, which has less than 4 items. So all the excess of items above 24, villager A is going to share. So let's suppose villager A has 60 potatoes. Is going to search a villager B that has nothing. Villager A is going to share 46 potatoes. Now villager B is going to search a villager C and is going to deliver now 22 potatoes, and that way it will start to decrease. Now villager C has less items than 24, and in this case villager C is not going to share food with anyone. A second task is opening and closing doors when they pass through. This is a secondary object. They do not have the objective to open or close doors, but if they pass through, this is going to happen. And besides opening or closing doors, they have the ability to climb ladders. This does not happen on purpose, but in case the ladders are on their way, they can use them. Another thing villagers do is try to survive, and this includes fleeing from some hostile mobs, within which we have these variants: the normal zombie, the zombie villager, the husk, the drowned, the zombie pigling, and the zugling. And of course we have all the members of the raids. For example, here we have the Vindicator, the Pillager, the Ravager, the Vex, and the Evoker. The next task is picking up items, within which the items they can pick up are the wheat seeds, beetroot seeds, potato, carrot, bread, which is crafted from wheat, bone meal, and since 1.20 villagers have the ability to work with their seeds, For example, the torch flower seeds, the pitcher plant, and the pitcher pod. These last ones are found by the sniffers, and these are the list of activities they perform all the way through the daily cycle, including these last ones we mentioned that do not depend on the specific phase on the daily cycle. And for the next video on this series, we're going to talk all about what we know about trading, commerce, discounts, prices, having to do with the reputation, and we're going to see how to build an economy based on emeralds with villagers. See you on the next video.